Welcome back. This is episode 14 of the Sioux City Show. My name is Taylor Grote. I'm hosting this thing. In the studio today, I have Brad Lepper of Stone Bru.
Yes,
Brad,
sir.
go ahead and tell us about Stone Bru, when it started, and what it's looking like right now.
So Stone Bru started it'll be 3 years ago in December of this year. So we kind of rewind a little bit. Came to town because my wife was going to school at Northwestern College, and when we met and when we got engaged, I moved up to Lamar's and had a history in water sports and got a job at Shields here in Sioux City. So she was going to school in Orange City, and I was working at Shields, and thought it would just be until she graduates, and ended up we're still here. So through that, I ended up with my first business was a small laundromat over in Dakota City, and ran that for a couple of years, and then that old Burger King was sitting there available. And our first house was right at the top of the hill there in Morningside. There's a little street called Mulberry, and 901 Mulberry. It's all the way down on the end. And so every day when I was going to work at Shields, I would look at that Burger King. So when it closed, it's like, man, that's a cool spot. And ended up making an offer on the building and got the building. So my original idea was always a laundromat because that was a business I was in. But you can't really use a drive-through very well with the laundry business.
Yeah.
And I'd always thought that Morningside needed a good coffee shop, and especially a drive-through one on Grote. There really wasn't much. If you're coming in from the east side and you're going downtown, there really wasn't anything until you got to Scooters all the way downtown.
True.
And then there was Starbucks down by the mall. So I originally reached out to kind of some bigger chains to see if they wanted to do it. And then my aunt, who had a coffee shop down in Lincoln, she's like, well, Brad, why don't you do it? And I was like, well, far be it from me to say no to another business. And with Robert Jennings, and then Jeff Boonstra were my partners with that. And did some research and was like, yeah, we think we can do this, and away we went.
Sweet. So you mentioned, like, before we started rolling that when you had the laundromat in Dakota City, you were putting arcade games in there, trying to find like other ways to like monetize, your laundromat crowd and provide opportunities for people to do other things while they're in there. And like I think that's a really good fit as well with Stone Bru being right next to the laundromat that's right down there on Gordon.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique pairing. There's not very many laundromats that have coffee shops in them, and I think it's important. Like they are separate businesses. Like Stone Bru is really kind of morphed into its own deal now, and
yeah.
I spend way more time on Stone Bru than I do in the laundry business anymore. But yeah, they do kind of synergize with each other.
Yeah. Because I remember like in the 90s, early 2000s, like Duds and Suds kind of ideas where like it was a bar laundromat mix.
Wasn't that in Iowa? Was it Iowa City or Des Moines?
Yeah, and they had there was a laundromat / liquor store in Sergeant Bluff, Iowa when I was growing up. That was like, I mean, it failed right away, but it's an idea that's existed, and I always thought it was like super weird. Like, I don't know, when I'm in my laundry mode, I'm also not in like go to the bar mode, so it seemed like a weird combination to me. But laundry and coffee definitely goes a lot better in my mind. But.
Yeah, I think you might see those types of arrangements becoming more popular. Kind of that third space, I would call it.
Yeah.
Where if you're not at work, you're not at home, the place that you go to study, meet friends, get other things done. So I know that there's a few of them in larger cities where it's a laundromat that also, it's a coffee shop that has laundry equipment. So instead of like a individual laundromat, individual coffee shop, it's like one just concept, and there's literally laundry equipment in the coffee shop. So there's some concepts like that are out there, but
especially as brick and mortar like needs to change, and people are trying to find ways to fill up all these strip malls that are just going under. I think that using like an old Burger King space as laundry and coffee shop has worked perfectly, and that's fun to talk about. But I think more than anything, what has attracted me to Stone Bru since the beginning is how well you guys pull off branding. And 99% of the time when a business starts in Sioux City, I look at what they're doing on the internet and I go, oh, geez, they need to hire somebody. They need to hire that out because they're not doing it right. But you, from the beginning, in terms of just like the aesthetic when you walk in to now your Dunes location is a killer location for a coffee shop. And, looking at what you do on Instagram and the way that you guys definitely did not half-ass your Tyson Event Center coffee stand, I think is just like a great roadmap to success for anybody who's starting a small business that does rely on branding.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think branding, especially in the coffee business, is everything. It's really a commodity at a base level, coffee in and of itself. It's what sells that coffee is the brand associated with it and the quality of the preparation.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that we really kind of dove into from the beginning. When we started Stone Bru, we knew what good coffee tasted like. We didn't know how to make it. And with support from Katura downtown, and then we've been out to Seattle a few times for the big international show, just learning all the details that go into making a good quality shot of espresso every time. And that's super important to us. I mean, you got to start with a good quality product, and then that branding is what gets people in the door. So if you have great branding and a really poor product, you're going to go under, and vice versa. If you have a great product and can't brand and can't market, you're going to go under.
Yeah.
So you got to have those two pillars. And the branding and marketing, so much of that is my wife, which I am super blessed to have her, because she is a great photographer and has a really good eye. So she filters out through I give her probably 1,000 bad ideas.
Yeah.
And she's constantly saying, no. And every once in a while she'll say, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And the mark of somebody who is good at that job is the person who like doesn't make you feel like a dumbass for your bad ideas.
Me feel like
okay.
No, just kidding.
But like that's my whole job, because I do the photo and video thing full time, is taking clients' ideas and being like, I really like that idea. I think we should do that like this, and completely rework their idea by telling them it's a good idea that was actually bad,
Yeah, she does that to me.
Yeah. So, I think that it's very common for people to have their big idea for what they would do with a space when they drive by it every day in Sioux City. That is a common thing. I know at least 15 people have told me that they have the best idea to open X restaurant in this location. Most of the time it's a Hooters by the mall is everybody's idea. But I think that it's really the first step, to becoming an entrepreneur in, the coffee space is just to do it, just to make that happen. But not only did you make that first space happen, how did you then take that success that you were having at the Gordon Drive location and then turn that into, the Tyson Event Center stand and also the Dunes location now that's kind of a flagship in the Dunes?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about entrepreneurship. We had this argument before. Entrepreneurship is really all about being on the field, like being in the game. And so many people spend so much time talking about ideas, watching other people do their ideas that they had 5 years ago, being like, well, that was my idea. And at the end of the day, I'm a big Gary Vee fan, and Gary Vee says all the time that ideas are crap. Everybody has a million ideas. Yep. It's all about execution. And that's when we started that shop, just getting into the game is really what allowed us to have opportunities going forward. So after we had that store down there and we were making good coffee and people started to like the coffee and come back, and we started to build that customer base. I was at a Tyson event one time, and I was like, man, they don't really have good coffee.
Especially for hockey games.
Yeah, especially for hockey games and just any event down there. So I went and I just started calling and got a hold of, I believe it was Mark Wisniewski was his name. He's not here anymore. I think he's in Kansas City. But ran the idea by him, and long story short, ended up building that in my garage.
Oh, nice.
And we built that mobile, and yeah, there we are. So there's one, and everybody's always like, well, how did you get in there? And like literally we just asked.
Yeah.
And there's that you might strike out just asking 10 times, but maybe you hit it one time, and that's all you have to do.
That's so true to everything that you want to do to like move forward in whatever profession you choose. Yes. Right. I have a friend who he lives in Denver. I live here. He started a digital development agency in Denver, And so like he and I are kind of on the same wavelength of like, you know, the trials and tribulations of starting things and doing things. And we've also kind of like been able to like share successes with each other. And I sent him a message the other day that was, you know, I told him I started this this podcast just like as something to do, right? And after episode 5, I think JD Schulten's campaign manager reached out to me and asked, you know, if I'd like to have JD on the show.
That's awesome.
And I was like, yeah, definitely. And, you know, I was shocked at the time because I was like, I didn't know that anybody watches this, let alone, you know, people I don't know. And I then did that episode with him, and it kind of turned into doing some video collaboration with JD throughout his campaign so far. And then a company from LA that does documentaries that like support their ideology or their like political leanings reached out to JD and was like, hey, we'd like to do a documentary on you. Do you know any filmmakers from Iowa that would be good to work for us? And he gave him my name. So now I've been working with that documentary company on JD's stuff and a few other politicians around the Midwest that has like allowed me to drive for it. And, you know, so many times people who are from Sioux City that do photo and video are like, how do I get hooked up with a production company in LA where they hire me for day shoots all the time? And it's like, I don't know, dude. Start a podcast, you know. It's
Absolutely.
like just do something, because I never would have expected when I started this that it would turn into that type of opportunity. You know, at the very least, I thought it'd be a good way to talk to people that I've wanted to talk to for a long time and be able to have a conversation with them and learn myself.
Yeah.
So if I can bring value to other people and make some opportunities for myself, that's a big win-win. But
Absolutely, and I think everybody wants to hit a grand slam their first time at the plate. Mm-hmm. Everybody is swinging for the fences with their first idea. Mm-hmm. That it's like it's so important to them, it's their baby. It's like, this is the idea that's going to be my $1 million or my multi-million-dollar idea. Mm-hmm. And they sit there and they just hone it down and work on it and tweak it and second guess it and mm-hmm. ask for other people's opinions and do focus groups. Yeah. And they think the thing to death and they never do it. Yep. Where if they would just start it, even start small, mm-hmm. and just the experience that you gain in doing that and the connections that you make.
Right.
You meet people that there's no way that you can know who you're going to meet or what opportunities are going to come. But being on the field, being in the game, you actually can win at that point. You're playing the game. You can have something good happen to you.
Definitely. So I, as an entrepreneur yourself and somebody who has like been able to show like a proof of work on your back or your successes so far, do you get like a bunch of people kind of like approaching you about their entrepreneurial ideas, like either as an investor, or even maybe just like as a consultant or advisor? Not
that much really.
Oh, okay.
And it's probably just because I'm a bit of a hermit, but I don't do a whole lot of socializing, so that might be it. I think I know even myself that before I started doing things, I was always a little bit intimidated to maybe go pitch my idea to somebody. So I think that's a very common thing, mm-hmm. that people don't feel comfortable enough to go walk up to somebody and be like, hey, what do you think of this idea? Yep. Maybe until you reach almost like this your Gary V or somebody like that somebody's walking up and they know that's your stick. But yeah, I haven't, but I love it when people do.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I would rather talk about than business and business philosophy and entrepreneurship.
Definitely. I'm in the weirdest position because I'm poor and I run this my own video production stuff, and I think since I've worked with so many brands that are like starting, you know, whether it be through like actual Kickstarter campaigns or just like, you know, their brand launch and stuff, I do have a ton of people with their big startup idea that maybe are in that beginning stage, like just formed their LLC, right, that reach out to me and they're like, hey man, I really want to work with you on this project. Do you want to become, you know, an original member and build sweat equity, which I'm really not interested in doing at all for anybody, because that would mean that I'd have to work for somebody at all, and I don't do that right now. So right. I like doing my own thing. But I hear so many people with great ideas overestimate what a great idea will return them. Like, you know, with that initial launch, they're like, if we don't make $100,000 in these first 3 months, like, well, we're going to call it quits because it's not even worth it.
Yeah, I'm like, it's way harder than people think.
Yeah, don't do that.
Harder.
You know, especially like people who don't really know what internet marketing is, you know, whether it's running Facebook ads or whatever, and they have heard about what internet marketing is, so they're like, oh yeah, we can run some Facebook ads and make $100,000 a week on this idea. Like, no, that's a bad idea. Don't do that.
Yeah, that's...
Don't have that be your benchmark of success.
Yeah, unless they've done a test or something, and they can say that, yeah, for every $10 I put in, I generate $50 in sales, and they can show that, well, this is a scalable concept.
Yep.
I'm already doing it. But yeah, so many people will come with an idea. It might be for a restaurant or something, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do, $5,000 a day in my first year. And it's like, it's not that easy to just, even if you build the coolest building and you have a great location and you have a good product, like getting people to change their daily habits is actually really difficult. It's
True.
You have to get them to be willing to take, in my situation, maybe it's $5 that that represents their life, a piece of their life, their labor. It's hard-earned money. And I have to get them to stop on their commute and make a right-hand turn and another right-hand turn, sit in line, order from a menu they've never seen before for a product they've never tried, and they don't know if it's any good. That's a hard ask.
Yep.
And it's not... People aren't being unreasonable when they drive by the place and I don't want to take the risk. That's an understandable thing. So you really have to, through your marketing and through consistent quality, is how you build that business. And a lot of people overestimate what they can do in that first year or the first 6 months. That's huge. And maybe underestimate what they're going to do in 5 or 10.
True.
But that first year, you really have to go into it and just know that the majority of businesses that are profitable in the first 2 years is extremely small. I would say under 20%. Like, it's really small, and I'm totally pulling that number out of the sky.
Profitable here. I'm a profitable man.
There you go. So there are people that do it. So I don't want to discourage anybody and say you're not going to.
True.
But I also don't want anybody to come into it and in the first 6 months, if they're not making bank and buying their dream car and flying to the Caribbean, that they understand that it's not because they suck or it's not because they're a failure. It's because they haven't given it enough time. They haven't been in the game long enough for good things to start happening.
Absolutely.
So. And
this is, I like to give like actually actionable advice on, from people who have done exciting things. And feel free to answer this at a very high level, or like topical level. Don't feel like you have to dig in here. But how did it look like with the capital to start? Was it your investment only, or was it did you find it formal investment, or actually be able to sell out some stake in the company to actual investors? How was that able to start up?
Well, I guess I'll kind of be pretty open about how I got my start. And like, I was working at Shields, and my father-in-law sent me a call one day and was like, hey, I've got a friend over here. He owns a little apartment building in Dakota City, and he's been having a problem with the finances, and he's going to lose it to the bank. And he called me and asked me if I wanted to buy it. And so my father-in-law was like, will you look at it for me? And I was like, yeah, send it over. And to kind of give some background, my dad was a real estate agent, and my uncle's a home builder down in Ames. So I've kind of grown up around housing. And then when I was about 16, 17, I got into Robert Kiyosaki back in the day.
Oh, okay.
So, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, every one of those books I read. So I read those books for 5-6 years, looking for deals. I got to find my cash flow deal, and never found anything. So I'm that kid in this moment.
For
so
sure.
I'm like, yeah, I want to look at it.
Like, that's my dream scenario.
Yes.
If somebody's like, hey, I want to buy an apartment building, let's look at it.
Yeah.
That's
it's
what
awesome,
I live for.
right?
Yeah.
And so he sent over the numbers, and we had this tiny little apartment up in Lamar's. And I remember sitting on the bed looking at this sheet of numbers. It was like handwritten. And I was like, man, this thing makes money.
Yeah.
And I had to go online and Google.
Well, that's everything I know about multi-door units in the first place, is like, how is he not making money? But, yeah.
You're right. Yeah. And so looked at his numbers. I was like, yeah, there's money to be made. And then I ran, what he's asking for it. And I knew we had to probably put 20% down on the loan. And I was like, well, I don't have that. But I ran all the numbers, and I called up my father. I was like, hey, this is a killer deal. Like, we need to find a way to do this deal. And so I wrote him an estimate or a proposition or a pro forma that said, we'll go into it 50-50, and I'll borrow my half of the down payment, which is like $22,000, something like that, and I'll pay it back in the first 2 years. And that comes off the top, and I just make you payments. And I was blessed to have a father-in-law or somebody in my life that was willing to take that first chance, right? So that was that first opportunity. Went in, to go get a loan at the bank. If I would have walked in to get that loan by myself, wouldn't have happened. But having somebody who's older, more secure financially, then all of a sudden it makes your risk look lower. So finding a good partner, like I know that passion or desire to always do everything like on your own, there's a lot of value there, but I was having this conversation with somebody today that I'd rather have 1% of something than 0% of nothing. So, or 100% of nothing. So doing that allowed me to work at Shields, and then I'd get off of work and I'd go and I'd paint and I'd, fix sinks and mow yards, and I did all of that work for the first, I'm still doing that over there, and that ended up being successful. So that's kind of an example of how I got my start in this, and I think that's probably to answer your question of how do you put a deal together. Really, it's all about finding the value. Like, so many people are worried about, I got to find an investor, and then I'll go find a deal. And that's the complete backwards way. You got to find the deal. If you find a great deal, something that makes money, something that produces value for people, then that money will come. There's way more money in this world than there is really good deals. And so if you can be the guy that has put in the work to be able to recognize the opportunity when it's in front of you, then that money will come. So there's so much. Everybody looks at that moment, but he got lucky. It's like, yeah, there was a certain amount of luck. Yeah, I was blessed to have somebody that would do that. But if I wouldn't have put in the work for those years leading up to it, he would have said, hey, do you want to do this? And I probably would have been like, well, things are looking really good for me here at Shields. I don't have time to do that. And it would have gone to somebody else.
Definitely.
So
I think that it's extremely important to, I think that some people who listen to this listen for actual, like, especially the entrepreneurship episodes, because they're like, I'm interested in entrepreneurship, I want to start this concept that I have, and I want to make it happen. And I think that a big problem that people get into is they think in terms of the 2010 and beyond startup idea. Like, I need to make this big digital company. We're not going to turn revenue for the first 5 years. It's all about customer acquisition, and then we're going to have a big exit. So I need to find this big investor that will be able to give me $5 million to start, But, like, so many people are missing all of the money that's on the table in real, proven businesses. Like laundromats, apartment buildings, that kind of stuff, being able to actually find an opportunity where, like, there's a market that needs X, and it's been proven that in every other market like it works, and you found this location, and this is the startup, and this is what you can expect to turn over in revenue, and be able to approach those informal investors, the father-in-laws of the world, the uncles, the grandmas of the world, being able to ask them for small loans of $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 is, like, really how you get that start in entrepreneurship, and that's, like, how real, self-employed capital is made. It's not necessarily in, like, those big tech ideas, which I think that too many people get wrapped up in.
The stuff that we're talking about isn't flashy, right? It's not flashy. Like, we bought that laundromat. I literally folded other people's underwear. Like, I fixed washing machines and mopped the floor. And when we had that apartment, it's not flashy. It's not a $5 million upfront investment where you go get a Rolex and a nice car and go to parties and be like, hey, I'm a founder of this new cool startup company. It's not that. And I think a lot of people want that kind of like, I'm a founder of X. And they're not thinking about, am I creating value? That they want the image because there's something in them that they need that for them to feel good about themselves. So they're chasing that high, that ego that's not really grounded in anything real. And they sell themselves short, and it's sad because so many people have talent, they have ability, and they have opportunities all around them. But because they're always swinging at this giant thing, that they're just missing everything else.
For sure. Did you go to college?
I didn't.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, I was homeschooled. I grew up my really weird childhood. When I was like 7 years old, we started traveling and singing. And we'd sing at churches and fairs. It was me, my mom, and my sister. Very much. And then my dad drove the bus and ran the sound equipment.
Wild.
And I did that till I was like 18. So I was homeschooled from like sixth grade on.
It's pretty cool.
It was an interesting way to grow up for sure. It really taught me how to meet new people.
Yeah.
And just no matter what culture or what people you're in, to be able to find some point of connection with them where you can start a conversation and meet people.
So is this like a Christian like rock group kind of deal?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it rock.
Oh, not
it's
rock?
like Bill Gaither style music. So we were there's like this hole in my pop culture life from like 1990 to probably 2000, where if it happened in pop culture, I know nothing about it. And
I have the weirdest fascination with that type of existence or like experience, I guess.
I'm very thankful for it, because I learned some really interesting, some very useful life skills in it, and I had met a lot of great people, and of course spent time with my family. But I definitely, when I was 18 years old, going into the real world and getting an actual job and not being in a church or in this kind of controlled environment every day, that was a big wake up for me.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting time, and it was a fun time though. I moved to Nashville like 2 weeks after I turned 18.
Cool.
And I did like a internship with a music company out there. So it was like thrown from living on a bus with your mom, your dad, and your sister, and then thrown into moving in with two guys I had never met, and then working 7 days a week. So it was kind of a rough transition.
I remember thinking like, whatever in middle school, you think of the concept of the homeschooled kids. And I was always wondering what they'd be like when I finally met somebody who was homeschooled. And then in high school, a few people from the Sergeant Bluff area that were homeschooled played on like the sports teams. They were on a track team and whatnot. And I was so let down because they were just like me. But the only difference is every homeschool kid I ever met was had a lot better, less reliance on swearing than everybody I knew at public school. So
yeah, swearing didn't go over really well in my family. So
I didn't suppose.
No, dancing, swearing, those were all bad things. It's funny because that's how I kind of met my wife. So growing up, Lutheran Methodist, very conservative. You don't dance. And so,
interesting.
Yeah, I met my wife at a wedding, and my family, for whatever reason, was sitting by the dance floor. So I saw my wife when she came in, and she's a beautiful girl, and I was like, I really want to talk to her. I want to get to know her. And she came down and stood right by the dance floor. And so I was scared to death, but I was like, well, this is your shot. So I walked up to her and was like, if I knew how to dance, I'd ask you how. I'd ask you to dance. And she was like, oh, I'll show you. Nice. And so it's really funny how that thing that was like totally off limits for my family is how I ended up meeting my wife.
Nice. So. Well, it gave you the ultimate pickup line.
That was like
a whole life spent not dancing
right for that moment.
For that. Yeah,
it paid off. So
big payoff. I like it.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're not from the area then, originally?
No, I was born in Ames and then lived in a little town called Hubbard, Iowa. So when I say I'm from Hubbard around here, everybody thinks Nebraska.
Yeah.
But Hubbard, Iowa, which is about 30 miles north of Ames.
Okay.
And lived there till I was 14. And then because of the singing thing, we moved to Branson when I was about 14. And I was ticked off because in Iowa, you get your permit at 14. So I just turned 14 when we moved. In Missouri, it wasn't until 15 and a half.
Oh, brutal.
So I had to wait like a year and a half. So that's how I always remember what year that was.
So have you seen Ozarks then?
I haven't. I need to, though, because I have a feeling I might recognize some of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to like all the way across there, through like Jeff City and then to Branson and stuff like that. And I still get like giddy. It's such a weird Midwest thing that whenever a town that we've been to in the Midwest is mentioned on a TV show or movie, we're like, yes, I know, I've been
that
there.
place. I've been there.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I mean, I've been to LA I think 2 or 3 times now, and every time I'm watching it, or 50% of the time I'm watching movies, I'm like, oh, I've been to that diner. It's in L.A. right by this place, not actually in Columbus, Georgia, like they're trying to say in this. So, yeah,
totally. Yeah, it was. Branson was a great place to grow up from those teenage years. I loved it. A lot of people think of Branson and they think of hillbillies and cowboy hats and country singing, and there's plenty of that. But what I loved about it was the lake. Table Rock Lake is one of the best lakes in the country. Super clean, like 800 plus miles of shoreline, and I love water sports. Wake surfing is my thing. I love it. And so I got to work for a water sports pro shop. We had like a our shop was at the end of a dock.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Like all summer long, I worked in board shorts and no shirt.
Yeah.
I got a great tan and was on the lake all summer.
That's such an uncommon Midwest life.
Totally.
Like it's being a beach kid without having a real ocean by you.
And I totally thought I was like a surfer. I was wearing O'Neill and everything all the time. And it's like, dude, you're from Missouri.
Yeah. When I was in high school, we had a jet ski, and then like my huge ambition in life was to be a Hollywood stuntman. Like that was all I wanted to do. And so I'd like go into my backyard for hours at a time and like teach myself to do backflips and then teach myself to do gainers, and like it was like a constant obsession with me. And we had a jet ski, or my parents did, and I got really sick on a jet ski, and I was like, I could turn this into a Hollywood thing. And then me and my dad were at and he started buying into the idea. My dad's a super supportive dude, but he's not a sure have your fantasy kind of dude. He's like if that's what you want to do, work a million times harder than everybody else to do that kind of guy. And I think it was kind of part like this Hollywood stuntman idea I had, and part actually my dad liked it. But we got like a stand-up jet ski, an 09, so it had like a 300, 600cc engine, 900cc engine. It was the new Kawasaki that came out. Yeah, it was a 900 because it was all engine. It's fast. Yeah, and it was insane, and I like got real nice on that. So, and at the same time, I thought like, oh, I'm a surfer now. I know how to jet ski, so I can start wearing O'Neill and Billabong every day. Yep,
that was me all the way. So, but it was, there's just something super appealing about that lifestyle, and I love it. It's just hard to make a lot of money at it, but money isn't everything. Yeah. And I enjoy the heck out of those summers, and that's kind of my. I keep doing this. I'm sorry. That's kind of my my pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is a lake house and like a nice Malibu wakeboard boat and surfing. Not in Malibu.
I thought you were gonna say like a nice Malibu. Front,
just a $100 million house.
Yeah.
I don't need that. Just a nice lake house with a nice boat that I can go surf and just hang out. I just love the lake lifestyle.
Yeah, I like to say that I have like the most attainable life goal is to own like 10 acres on like the foothills of mountains. And it doesn't even care. I don't care. Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, I don't even care where these mountains are. But just like 10 acres on the foothills of mountains with like a 2-bedroom house at the bottom of it. That's it. That's the dream scenario. So I really like that is accomplishable for like less than $250,000. That's nice to keep in the back.
Dude, you're gonna hit that in the next 5 years.
Oh, it's just a matter of internet speeds at this point.
That's like a mile marker on the longer term vision. You're gonna have to think even.
I might just retire.
You could.
If I get my Merch by Amazon account popping, I might just retire at that point. Yeah.
I think I know what you mean by retire. Like I never want to retire.
Yeah. No.
Like retire means I don't have to wake up and have a list of things that I have to get done today. Like that's my retire, but. I'm always going to want to do stuff. Yeah. There's nothing better than working on a deal or working on a business idea or a product and seeing it through and then seeing people using it and enjoying it and seeing it be successful. Like that's a high that I don't find really anywhere else. I love it.
Retirement to me is being able to do everything I do now and even like the same amount of commitments, crap I got to do. But having an assistant, like somebody who can do my paperwork is like that's the ultimate dream work life. It's just like I don't want to fill out this form. Can you take care of it, please?
Yes.
Being able to hire somebody to do that is golden. But this is I don't know if you've made this like public or if it's even something that you guys get really stoked about. But I've noticed. Do you guys have adopted solar into at least the Gordon Drive location? Is that like a big picture? Like, do you plan on expanding that, or what does that?
I sure would like to. We got. I don't even remember how, but I got. Oh, I do remember. The old city administrator for Dakota City, his name was Brent Clark. Because I have those buildings over there. There's a guy by the name of Dolph Ivner.
Yeah, Hog Power.
Yep, that he had been in touch with Brent, and Brent was like, you should talk to Brad, so we got connected, and I looked at it for a few years, and I wasn't able to make it make sense financially. And then when he came out with the shipping container system, then the price versus the value that it created with the solar, right? It's about a 15% return on your money.
Yeah.
So that plus the storage for me is huge. Being able to utilize the shipping container to store stuff is really valuable. So it's really a value play. Like I'm a very practical environmentalist, if you can say that. Like I am really passionate about doing things that help the environment and are green, like green energy with our solar. We try and do as much stuff in paper products as we can, because it's practical. It's not taking anything away, but we're contributing to a better environment and a better planet going forward. So I'm super passionate about doing things like that. That if it doesn't make sense yet financially, I think then you have to keep working on the concept, because if it doesn't make sense financially, it's not sustainable. Right? Like eventually that runs out. Same thing with a business. If a business doesn't make money and it doesn't create enough value, that's not sustainable either.
Sorry about the little interruption we just had there. Verified tarantula just walked through the studio. At least that big. It was a wolf spider, to be fair, but it's big and furry, and it's still on the loose in the studio, so I might just finish it like this. But yeah, that was horrifying. But what I was telling these guys is the other day, and we have Brian in the studio today. He's helping us out with production. It's a real lifesaver. I'm not sitting here monitoring my laptop every 3 seconds, and I love it. But I woke up and I fell asleep on the couch with my dog, and she's a big 75-pound Doberman. And she was just sprinting around the living room going crazy, and I'm like, what is going on with this dog? And she's barking and jumping at the walls, and it was I just listened to it for like 15 minutes before I finally was like, Ramona, stop. I look up and she's chasing a bat flying around the middle of my living room. And immediately, like, it went from like, what is that, to like panic, like, I don't have any tennis rackets. I don't know what to do here. So my girlfriend's in the bedroom. She shuts the door. And I had this added urgency to getting this bat situation taken care of, because I didn't want the dog to get it.
Right.
Basically. And so my girlfriend doesn't know how to use Google, apparently. She was on the other side of the door. I'm trying to yell through. She was not listening. So I picked up like a baby gate. And as it was coming around the circle here, I knocked it right against the wall and killed it. And my dog was acting scared, ran away from it, went and laid in the corner of the room. I was so embarrassed for every guard dog instinct she had. Yeah,
I had the same thing like 2 weeks ago. We have a little boy, and he was crying. It was like midnight or something. So I get up, and his room is across the house. So I have to walk through like our kitchen, dining room, living room area is all one big room. So I'm walking through there, and it's pretty much dark. There's a couple like night lights or something, and something swoops right in front of my face. And so it's like midnight. I just woke up. I'm like, psh, it's nothing. I'm imagining things, right? Yeah. And so I take like 4 more steps, and it comes right in front of me again. And I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
So I turn on all the lights, and I have my pillow in my hand. I like open all the doors, and I'm just like swatting at it to try and get it to leave. And I think it actually, I thought it flew out the door. I think it actually flew into our office and like landed on top of the cabinets. And I didn't know. And so I'm like, okay, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I go to sleep, and we go on a little vacation and come back. And like we're home for 8 hours or something. All of a sudden, my wife screams bloody murder in the bathroom because it's flying around again.
Bats are scary.
Dude, they are scary. So I ended up swatting it this time, and it was like landed on the counter. And so I threw a towel over it and scooped the thing up and just threw the towel and all outside. Yeah. And it flew off. I was like, get out.
As big of a site, like, the spider, I have a kill on site order out for the spider, but I'm pretty soft with animals, and my girlfriend says, you don't care about bugs, you don't care about snakes. Mammals. I just got a soft spot in my heart. Like, I find it very hard to kill mammals for some reason. I'll fish all day. I could shoot a bird. I don't care. But mammals, I'm not fun. I have a weird thing with it.
It's the eyes and the breathing.
Yes.
That, like,
that's a good way to put it.
That's the thing that, like, I think I don't hunt. When I was a kid, I trapped a little bit, and I didn't like it because I didn't like killing them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Is like, no, like, seeing them quit breathing. Yeah. It's like, I don't need to do this.
Yeah. I have zero moral objection to the practice of hunting, meat eating in general. Like, it does. Like, I don't want to seem like that's the stance I'm taking. But when it comes to me having to kill things, I'd rather somebody else does it. Right. When it comes to mammals.
Well, and in a lot of ways, like, hunting is way more humane than how the majority of the meat that we get. It's way more humane for it to be hunted than it is to get it from a packing plant.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I've heard Rogan talk about this a lot, and he's right, that the majority of animals in the wild either are eaten alive, die of starvation or of disease. And, like, you hunting, you're a part of the food chain, you're a part of that, and typically it's a very fast and humane way for them to die. And if you're eating, especially if you're eating the meat too, I think that's just part of nature.
And not only that, but hunters pay exponentially more money towards nature conservation than any other demographic.
Absolutely.
And what was I gonna say? Oh, so that was the second bat I've killed at my house. My first one is my girlfriend texted me while I was at work, half an hour away from home. She said, "There's a snake in the basement." I said, "There's no snake in the basement." She said, "It's hissing at me from underneath the pile of clothes." I said, "I don't think that's true." So I went down. As soon as I got home, I was just annoyed that she sent me this problem while I was at work. So I go downstairs, and I'm going to go down and prove a point, like flip over the stack of clothes. There's no snake here. And as soon as I walk up to the pile of clothes, it starts hissing. This pile of clothes is hissing at me. And it was like, oh, there is something underneath there. I don't know what it is. It's not a snake because it was a mammal. Like, you know how you can hear a mammal sounds different. Yeah. I was like, so I thought maybe a possum or like a raccoon maybe had gotten into the basement. And I was like, oh, shit. So I pick up like a snow shovel was the only thing next to it. And I flip over this pile of clothes, and attached to this T-shirt looking right at me and hissing was a bat. And it was like, and I had a plastic snow shovel that's all flimsy. So I had to hit it like 5 times before it stopped, and I felt like such an asshole, but I was horrified. And it was like, I was still, I think me and Veronica had been living together for like a month and a half, so I was still trying to look cool at the time, And
you were all that was man.
Now I'd scream and run. All pretenses of that are dropped at this point.
There's something about bats. They are just creepy creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I've had the weirdest attraction to animals, or animals attracted to me lately. Just baby raccoons in my neighborhood. I'll be walking down the sidewalk and see some baby raccoons go, come here. And they start running towards me, come up, want food from me, but I don't have any food. But I feel like a Snow White lately.
I was gonna say, you got some like animal whispering going on.
I think so.
It's another business opportunity.
I'm not gonna deny that I have animal whispering.
So to finish, we were talking about the solar thing. So
my bad.
I just think it's super important for it to be like sustainable and for it to make sense. I don't think you should have to. I think that the human psyche and our ingenuity is smart enough to create ways that we can generate electricity, we can generate power, we can generate value in ways that are sustainable. And so when it came to putting the solar panels down at the coffee shop, it actually made sense. There was a return on the capital invested.
Yep.
And so that we're the first coffee shop in Sioux City, and I don't know, maybe all of Iowa, that's 100% energy neutral. So,
you are?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
All of the energy for the coffee shop is generated by the solar panels, and then some, because it actually kicks some energy to the laundromat too.
Very cool.
We have that one there, and I also have one of my multifamily properties that's all electric. The building, everything's in it's electric, and then I have another one of those same units.
Sweet.
And do it over there
at the multifamily property. Are you able to sell back to the grid at all? Have you ever been able to create a surplus off the solar panels?
I've never. You're always selling to the grid and back and forth.
Oh, okay.
So it's I've never made more than I've used.
Interesting.
It always just deducts what your bill is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like during the day, the meter might run backwards. Cool. But then at night, or if you're using a lot of energy, that's where it's charging you.
So you might have looked into this because I've done base amounts of research. But have you ever looked into like the Tesla wall battery?
Yeah, they're amazing.
Do you use it, or is that
no?
Like something
And they're super hard to get.
Oh, okay. I know the roof has like a 5-year waiting time right now.
Yeah, they're really hard to get. And Dolph has been working on that, and his idea is killer. And I've got a lot of kudos to go to Dolph with what he's created there.
Yeah. I should get him on.
Yeah, you should, man. He's super knowledgeable when it comes to wind energy, solar energy, and just how the whole system works. He's a genius with it. He's awesome. But anyway, he's developed that whole system where those all the pieces and workings for the solar energy will fit in that shipping container. Mm-hmm. So he's working right now where he's actually sending them to like Puerto Rico to help with the hurricane relief.
Yeah.
And so they can drive up this shipping container, offload it within a few hours, put it all together, and have energy for like schools is what they're working on now.
Wow.
So it's a super cool system. And yeah, it was funny this summer. It was actually early spring. He called me and was like, hey, can you do me a favor? I need to send one of these units to Puerto Rico. Do you mind if I borrow your solar panels? And I was like, sure, go ahead. Yeah. Because at the time, we weren't hooked up yet because we were trying to get all the permits and everything with the city. Yeah. It was taking forever. So
cool. Yeah.
Some of our solar panels went to Puerto Rico right after the hurricane.
Interesting. That's really cool. I really want to get him on the podcast because that's an avenue I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
So like, you have the Gordon Drive, the Tyson Event Center, or just the mobile stand, right?
Yep, mobile stand.
And the Dunes location.
And the new Honda. There's a store at the new Honda dealership.
Oh, cool.
The new Vernite, when they remodeled, they came to us and they wanted a cafe in the actual dealership. Mm-hmm. So we built a really cool place down there. Same level of quality equipment that's in the Dune. So we have the Clima Pro grinders with the 2 Group Mavam espresso machine, the EK43, so super high quality espresso. Virtually the same setup, but just a little bit smaller like we have in the Dunes. And that's down there. So really good place that if you're in that area and you just want to swing in for some coffee, like open to the public, anybody can come in.
Yep.
And yeah, that's a super cool spot.
Who designed the interior of the Dunes location?
My wife and I.
Wow. You guys did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is a benchmark of what I think all businesses should aspire to. Just the impression that they should leave on people because it is a constantly remarked upon space.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We really wanted it to kind of feel like we're both Iowa kids, very Midwest, and we love the Midwest, but we wanted it to feel like you stepped into a big city.
Yeah.
Like we wanted a very metropolitan, very modern feel that when you're in there and the experience that you get, like the level of equipment that's there, that's the highest quality coffee equipment within several hundred miles.
Yeah.
That espresso machine was serial number 1 for that particular machine. So ours was the first one, the second one went to Miami, and the third one went to Hollywood. So like,
yeah.
The level of equipment and the attention to detail in that store was really big. Cool. And we have a big passion for doing that, have a lot of fun. But we wanted just to set that environment that when you stepped in there that it feel like maybe you stepped into like Seattle or something like that.
You nailed it on that one. That's kind of like the way I pitch it to people when they're like, oh, what? I'm like, you should see the new Stone Bru and the Dunes. Like it looks like a New York City coffee shop. Is the way I
awesome.
put it, you know.
Thanks.
And if you were to now, with all the life experience, all the life lessons that you've gotten so far, if you were to go back and talk to yourself, you know, you had the experience, you were the late kid in Missouri, you were the kid that wasn't allowed to dance, you know, the dancing was forbidden, you met your wife, danced, right? And you're the guy who works at Shields is just, that's what you got going on right now. Your father-in-law hasn't called you about any apartment complexes. Is there any piece of advice you'd give yourself as, you know, a salaried or even hourly paid employee who has an entrepreneurship spirit but isn't exercising it?
Spend your, like, one of the things that Robert Kiyosaki says that I really took to heart is he says that you earn a living between 9 to 5, and you create wealth with all the other time. So really focus on what are you doing when you're not working your 9 to 5, and that doesn't mean that you go out and you're actually creating cash in that time. It might mean that you're reading books. It might mean that you're listening to podcasts. Like there's a million and one things that you can do to learn. We have the most tremendous opportunity to live during a time where we can literally go to YouTube and listen to CEOs, heads of companies, like creators, inventors, and we can actually listen to these people talk and glean from them.
Yep.
And you don't have to go down to the library. You don't have to order a book. Like, you can literally just pull up your phone, turn it on, and listen. And the amount of information you can get is incredible. Like, people probably think I'm a total douche because I walk around a lot of times in town and I have headphones on. And I'm always listening to a book or a podcast when I'm walking around.
Yep.
So people probably think I'm listening to music. Most of the time, it's a podcast or a book.
I agree with that so fully because I have absolutely no tolerance or like empathy for people who tell me like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. Because I'm like, if you don't know how to cook, you can find these 2-star Michelin chefs like Gordon Ramsay that will talk you through step by step how to create anything on YouTube. You know, and it's like, you have no excuse to not know how to do something that you want to know how to do in 2018.
I feel like as a species, we haven't caught up to the level of information and its availability. Because you think about where we are and how far technology has advanced with our access to information versus how far we've advanced as a species. I mean, we're not utilizing these tools to the fullest extent that they can be. And I think in 10, 20 years, people are going to be spending a lot more time listening and educating themselves through those platforms. I think it's huge. You're talking about what would I suggest for somebody that's trying to get their start is focus on being the right person that's at the right place at the right time. Everybody's like, well, I'm never at the right place at the right time. It's because not only do you have to have those two, but you have to have that third. You have to be the right person because you've probably been at the right place at the right time 100 times in your life already, but you were not the right person standing there. But the right person came along and got that opportunity. So if you focus all of your time and effort after 5 o'clock and before 9 o'clock and on the weekends at becoming the right person for that opportunity, whether it's meeting people, educating yourself, honing your craft, then when those other two come along and you're the right person, that's where it's at.
Yeah, and doing things like
taking that jump.
Yeah, having that prior skill set that when somebody's looking for, whatever, like a content creator, being the person who has like an Instagram full of photos to show, or because nobody gets hired to be the full-time videographer for a company without having 10,000 hours on the front end doing videography for nobody, doing it for themselves. You know what I mean? So
it's all a progression. I mean, it all builds. That it's not super flashy when you start, and that's okay. And just accept that when you start out on something that, the first time you swung a baseball bat, you probably didn't hit a home run. You probably missed as like a 4-year-old kid.
Probably.
And it probably took you 2 years before you hit the ball. And that's okay. And especially in entrepreneurship, everybody's afraid of failure. And there's no undefeated in the entrepreneurial world. You're still over that spider.
I cannot stop thinking about the spider. Yeah.
There's no undefeated. That's a Gary V thing. And it's okay to try something and have it not work. The main thing is get out there, be active, try, do. And good things will happen if you keep doing that.
I agree. How do you find yourself balancing success and losses? And just to put this in perspective, I ask that because I am the worst person in the world at really taking failures to heart, like really going, I need to learn from this. I can never do this again. I'm ashamed of that failure. You know, when it comes to like business things, I can't ever let that happen again. But like successes, doing like the weirdest, just like mentally going, that's not that big a deal. Like things that are really a big deal, like national campaigns that I've worked on for like Budweiser, done Super Bowl for Vayner Sports. You know, these big gets for me. Like I just like rationalize like it's not yeah, it's cool that I got that, but they didn't like it wasn't something I really earned. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I just don't celebrate my success. I personally don't celebrate my successes.
That's very common.
And yeah, I'm wondering if you have like if you found a way to like balance like the wins and the losses of being an entrepreneur.
To me, it's all about the chase.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the process of it that is really the most fun. Like the day before you close a deal is way more exciting than the day that you close it.
Agreed.
Like
Agreed.
that anticipation is actually a way bigger high than when it's done and the night after and you're like, oh, let's celebrate. But for me, in my mind, I'm like, well, that's done. I gotta, what's next? Like you're always in that chase mode.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I don't really look at successes and be like, oh, that's amazing. I do it maybe every quarter, every 6 months. Like I'll talk to my wife and be like, man, if like 6-year-old me working at Shields would see the things that I've done, like I would be pretty stoked about that. But I don't think about that very often. And the losses, man, it happens, and you learn. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And my dad always told me that education's expensive no matter how you get it. And I've paid for my education. I didn't go to college, but I have paid for education in real estate, in business. I've paid a lot for my education. Yeah. And it's just the school of hard knocks. Yeah. And like looking at my son, he's 2. I value what I've learned going through it like the hard way. It's so important that I want him to have to do the same. I don't want him to come into a preformed business and step into like this handmade or just cushy little deal. Like, I want him to know what it's like to hustle and to know what it's like to be like, how am I going to make this work? Yeah. And I don't want to buy him a fancy car. My first car was a 92 Plymouth minivan. Like, I want him.
It's really hard to get a girlfriend with a 92
super
Plymouth
hard,
minivan.
Man.
At least get him something that can get him a girlfriend.
Wood paneling on the side. It was legit.
Maybe like a starter truck. Yeah, go with like a 05 Silverado at this point.
Yeah, that's probably a little more sexy.
Yeah.
But like starting out and appreciating what it really takes to get there. Because if you don't do that, if you don't go through that process, then somebody who has will take everything you have away from you at some point in your career. Yep. You cannot cheat this game. Like you cannot cheat at this game because eventually it will catch up to you. If you don't come up through it and you just try and jump to here, there's going to be a guy that's here that has all of that foundation underneath them that is going to kick your legs out from under you.
Absolutely.
When they have the chance. So, there's so much value in the losses and learning through that. Yeah. It sucks in the moment, and even in this last year and a half, I've had some things that have been like, ugh. Yeah. But you live, you move past them, and you learn.
I truly believe that, like, we as people, and especially people coming into the workforce, whatever it may be, you don't have anything, your parents can't give you anything but a work ethic that is going to make a difference in your life. Like, material things will not matter. The material things come and go very quickly, and your parents aren't going to be able to support the material things in your life for very long. But if you can instill in your children a work ethic, that's providing for a lifetime of being able to accomplish goals, and that's really what it's all about. I'm just checking to make sure we have enough time on this memory card.
I mean, I watch my dad, and my dad will work me into the ground still. My dad's 50-some years old. He had an excavating business and did construction, and he can run a shovel better than me. I still look at him and am amazed at how much work he can do. Yep. Even at his age, he's got a really bad back and everything, and it's just, yeah, that I see that image. And so sometimes people say, oh, you work so hard. But I come from a family of farmers, and very kind of entrepreneurial in the farming world. And I look at my grandpa and my great grandpa, my great great grandpa, that they lived through the Depression, where it's like you work, like that's all you do is work, and I am lazy compared to like my grandfather, my great grandpas. So that work ethic is huge, and it's definitely a dying ethic. Like that thing we're talking about, where people just want to arrive. The work ethic that it takes to get there, people don't want that. Then not everybody. I'm generalizing. There's a lot of hardworking people out there that just haven't had that break. So I don't want to sound arrogant or jerk here, but yeah,
no, I understand
that work ethic thing is super important.
I'd say like one of my biggest shortfalls is, there might be, unfortunately, there's like probably a few clients I've worked with in the past that are like, man, Taylor just doesn't work very hard. Like it took him like an extra day, or an extra day or two to get this video project back to us. And it's like, it seems that way because I was also like, I pulled an all-nighter the night before working on a giant project for another company that I never told you about because I wanted to make sure I could get both done, you know what I mean? And it's like, but those, I promised anybody out there who has ever felt like they got something late from me and that I was dropping the ball on it, it is because it affected me 1,000 times more than it affected you, because I was dying when I did it.
People have unrealistic expectations of things they've never done. And my wife's a photographer, and so I've seen like the editing process and what goes into creating that final piece of digital content, whether it's a video or a still shot. Like there's a lot of work that goes into that, and people have no idea. They literally, I think people look at photographers and content creators in the moment of actually getting the content or shooting, and they think that's the work.
And they're like, oh, that was easy.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, that's an hour and you're done. And it's like, no, that's the easiest part of the whole thing. And then you have to go back, and all the work is behind the scenes.
For photography, it's about 3-to-1 time spent on location, and for video, it's about 6-7-to-1 on time spent on location. So it sucks. But I don't want to run out of time before I get this question in. We got about 10 minutes left. What, in your opinion, this is a segment I like to call Most Slept On in Sioux City. In your opinion, what is one thing that you know about in Sioux City that you love, whether it be like a restaurant, a thing to do, just a place to go, that you love and you think everybody should know about it? Usually I give people a chance to think for a second, and I go with my own. My thing is, I think I might have already said this one, but I'm going to go with it again, Stone Park. I think that it is like the most underrated asset that Sioux City has, period. I think that, like, whenever people move to Denver, they always tell me like, oh, we have the best hiking trails here, or like I'm able to just like go drive and hike on a trail. I'm like, Sioux City has Stone Park, which is like huge, and it's all these back trails, and like I go out there a couple times a week, take my dog out for walks and stuff, and it's like these beautiful like photos come to life hiking trails, right? And I might be the only person that I see out there on like a 2-mile walk the whole day. So I just don't think that people really appreciate that whole section of Siouxland for what it is.
I don't get out a whole lot, but when I do, the place that I really enjoy is McCook Lake, like the McCook Lake and Adams Nature Preserve, kind of that combo out there. My wife and I will go out and we'll ride bikes. We got a little trailer for our little boy, so we like to ride the trails at Adams Nature. And then one of my partners has a boat, and so we go out on McCook, and I love to surf. So those are probably my 2 favorite spots out here.
Nice. Love it.
Just being out there.
Very cool. Well, before we wrap this up, do you have anything that you want to pitch, you want to add in at the end here?
Just thank you to the Sioux City community for embracing Stone Bru and for giving us their business and entrusting us with their coffee needs and taking a chance on us. And one of the other things I was going to say there is like we have such good employees, and there's a lot of amazing people in the Siouxland area that we grew up, the way I grew up, saw the majority of the country, and everywhere has its pluses and minuses. The most important thing is the people that are in that particular area, and there's a lot of really good quality people here, and we're blessed to be a part of the community. And so that would be one thing that I would want to say, is just thank you to everybody for supporting us. And we've got some exciting things coming this fall, so kind of keep your ear to the ground. We'll probably be coming out with an announcement in the next couple months on a new project for Stone Bru. So that's they say don't let the grass grow under your feet, so we're trying to stay true to that.
Awesome, man. Well, all of the successes this far have been very well deserved, and I'm very excited to see what's next for you guys. You guys can check out Stone Bru at the corner of Gordon and Stone, right in front of Rollorama, down the hill from Western Iowa Tech, in the dunes. And what's the name of the building that's in?
It's Gold Circle is the name of the development,
Gold
but
Circle.
I think that's exit 1.
Yeah.
It's right next to, it's in the same building as Central Bank.
Yep.
And NAI United, so it's right there on the corner.
Right next to K-Meg's production studios, if people aren't familiar with the new construction in the dunes.
Yep.
And then also you can see their mobile cart around at some events at the Tyson Event Center and other places.
And then the Honda store too. So,
and
that's Singing Hills in Lakeport. And there's no signage on the outside, but when you see the Honda dealer, just go inside and you'll run right into it.
Nice. And now this last part is my pitch for the audience is if you could go to the iTunes store, if you're listening to this on the audio version, and leave a rating and a review for me. Only leave good ones. I'm not going to pay attention to the bad ones. And
no choice.
Yeah, no choice. And thumbs up on YouTube. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram at Taylor Grote Media. That's Grote.
I'm going to add one thing to your pitch here.
Yeah.
This is super important. And this is one thing that if I could give advice to Sioux City, support local stuff.
Thank you.
Support local stuff.
Yes.
Like, support your local people who are trying something cool, who are starting out, whether it's a new restaurant, it's a new bar, it's a new coffee shop. It's whatever it is. If it's a guy with a cool podcast, support it.
You heard it.
Nothing, like, I feel like kittens die every time I drive by a national chain that is packed in Sioux City.
Yes.
And I'm just like, and it's not because it's not mine. It's just because it's like, there's so many other great things.
Yeah.
Like in this town, we love to be like, oh, look, we get another national chain, and it's all over the news. But when somebody tries to start something cool, it doesn't get as much hype.
Right.
So for the people that love the cool local stuff, thank you. For the people that support, for the people that maybe aren't as passionate about it, be more passionate and support.
Thank you. And adding on to that, it is I put on this plea at the end every once in a while that I say, like, comment, like, review, rate, that kind of stuff. And like it's really not just for me. It's a lot playing into algorithms, and it's a huge boost to me. Like, if you leave a review or a comment on a YouTube video, that's a huge plus. I really appreciate it. It's really nice, and it goes a long way. So until next time, like, rate, review, follow, subscribe, and tune in next time for episode 15 of the Sioux City Show. Thank you so much.